was very, very, very impressed at the creative ideas that you came up with yesterday for how to prevent the damage that is caused by tornadoes. I can tell that you used the research that you learned, and I can tell that you were also creative. So I am very excited to see what you are going to come up with today on your research for earthquakes and hurricanes. All right. On Seesaw, you will see that we have an activity that has been unlocked to you. If you click that activity bulb, it will refresh and bring it up. It is called Solutions for Earthquakes and Hurricanes. These are structured the same way they were yesterday. We're going to work on coming up with a solution for the damage caused by earthquakes together. And then you are going to work on coming up with solutions for the damage caused by hurricanes independently, okay? I would like for you please to click on Add Response. That will open you up to slide 1, which is a video about earthquakes. And I will play that video for us to build some background knowledge on earthquakes, what they are, how they happen, and the types of damage that they cause in our environment. So please think as you're watching about how we could solve some of this damage. There we go. Have I shared my sound? That's the next question. No, there we go.
From above, the planet appears eerily still. But every mountain range and every chasm on its face is a scar, with many telling a story of when the Earth rumbled to life. Earthquakes occur around the world. They've been recorded on all 7 continents, but most quakes take place in just 3 regions. The Mid-Atlantic Ridge, an underwater line that runs down the Atlantic Ocean, the Alpine Belt, which stretches from the Mediterranean to Southeast Asia, and the Circum-Pacific Belt, which traces along the edges of the Pacific Ocean and is where about 80% of all earthquakes occur. These areas experience the most earthquakes due to what lies beneath the surface. Earthquakes are the result of pressure, specifically pressure caused by extreme stress in the Earth's crust. That stress can be caused by volcanic activity or even man-made activities in certain areas. However, most earthquake-inducing stress is caused by the movement of tectonic plates. Tectonic plates are constantly moving, either against, away, along, or underneath each other. But sometimes their edges may catch and stick. The plates, however, continue to move, or at least attempt to. Energy from this attempted movement builds around the edge's sticking point, creating immense pressure until the edges are forced to let go and the plates slip. This causes a sudden and powerful release of energy, so powerful that it breaks the Earth's crust. This fracturing emits shock waves through the ground and causes intense vibrations, or quakes. In fact, the world's most earthquake-prone regions are where the most geologically active plates meet. Earthquakes, or any seismic activity, are recorded by seismographs. When the ground shakes, seismographs oscillate, drawing a jagged line to reflect this movement. The more extreme the earthquake, the greater the height of the jagged line. These recorded motions are then used to measure the earthquake's strength, or magnitude. While several scales of magnitude exist, the one seismologists prefer is the moment magnitude scale. It has no upper limit, and it measures earthquakes logarithmically. This means that each magnitude on its scale is 10 times greater than the one before it. Unlike the now rarely used Richter scale, the moment magnitude scale can be applied globally and can measure quakes of the highest magnitudes. The largest recorded earthquake occurred near Valdivia, Chile in 1960. Nestled within the Circum-Pacific Belt, The Valdivia earthquake was the most powerful in a series of quakes that struck the region, measuring at a magnitude of about 9.5. In addition to causing devastating tremors on land, the earthquake also generated a deadly tsunami reaching up to 80 feet high. The tsunami raced across the Pacific Ocean, hitting faraway countries like the Philippines and Japan. In fact, data from seismographs showed that the shockwaves emitted by the Valdivia earthquake continued to shake the entire planet for days. Some earthquake-prone areas have adapted various ways to protect their communities. Buildings and bridges are designed to sway rather than break when an earthquake occurs.
Thinking about some solutions right now of how we can prevent the damage. Remember, we can't prevent the disaster, but we can prevent damage, so listen up closely.
To protect their communities. Buildings and bridges are designed to sway rather than break when an earthquake occurs. The public is educated on how to protect themselves during a seismic event, and government officials enact drills to ensure the protection of their people. Earthquakes can leave behind incredible devastation. But these same forces have also created magnificent features, with each adding character to a planet so unique.
All right, so today we are going to explore earthquakes together, okay? Let's go ahead and move on to slides 2 through, I believe, 9. Yep, on slides 2 through 9, we are going to read. As we are reading, we're going to do the same thing that we did yesterday, where we are going to highlight the impact on human life and on the environment, okay? So as we're reading, we're thinking about how does this affect humans? How does this affect the environment, being the nature and the community around the area that the event occurs, okay? So we're going to take a look at this together. And then as we are reading, you are also doing a second thing. You are going to think about possible solutions to contain the damage. So just like yesterday, where I asked you, what are you guys thinking? I want to hear your ideas as we work today, okay? All right, let's take a look. Shaken up. 1 minute, everything is fine. Then the floor shakes. A picture falls off the wall. The walls make cracking sounds. Outside, a car horn honks. Did a car crash into the house? No, but it felt like that. What really happened? An earthquake shook the ground. You see our caption here, a home is cracked and broken after an earthquake. That is an effect to both humans and to the community around. Let's highlight that. A home is cracked and broken. Homes aren't things that we often think about breaking. We think about maybe possessions breaking like cell phones or toys, but it's strange to think that a house can break as well. And that's some of the damage we can see from earthquakes. Let's move on to slide 3, please. Highlight the impact on humans and the environment. So we're looking for humans, we're looking for the environment. We're going to think about ways that we can lessen that damage, okay? The earth beneath our feet seems solid, but it's not. The earth is made of huge plates of rock. These plates are always moving. Most of the time, they move very slowly. They slide past one another, and sometimes they rub together. Sometimes they crash. This is the start of an earthquake, okay? There's some diagrams here that shows how the earth's surface is made of moving plates. So we can see here that the house right here is sitting on top of those moving plates. So believe it or not, guys, your house is not in the same place all the time. Sometimes the ground underneath it moves a tiny bit and it rubs, okay? How big are the Earth's plates? They are as big as the continents. One is as big as the Pacific Ocean. So these aren't dinner plates, folks. Okay, these are huge, right? As big as the ocean. That's a very large plate. Let's check out slide 4. How bad is an earthquake? Remember, you're thinking about the impact on humans and the environment. How bad is an earthquake? There are about 1 million earthquakes around the world every year. About half of them are small. Some happen far from towns and cities or under the ocean. No one notices them. The other half are big enough to feel. About 16,000 quakes a year cause major damage. Some are killers. So 16,000 earthquakes a year can cause damage. Some of those kill. Okay, that is an impact on humans. Let's look at our photograph here. Our caption says an earthquake in China destroyed these buildings and everything around them. Question, how do earthquakes kill people? Answer, people die because buildings fall during an earthquake. Roads and bridges break apart. Fires begin when gas lines burst. Okay, so it's not just that we're in buildings and they fall, but actually the ground can open up and bridges can break and people can fall. And also when that ground shakes, gas lines underneath the ground that give us energy and heat can snap and catch fire as well. Lots of damage, lots of problems that we're hearing about. Does anyone have any ideas for what we could engineer to help earthquake areas not have as bad of damage? Christopher?
You can try and build more of those buildings that adapt so they don't break, so they only shake.
Okay, so adaptable buildings that can shake instead of only break. So that way when the ground shakes, they don't snap, they move a little bit with it. Great. Terrence, what's your idea so far?
Well, first, mine will probably still work because it would just be the ground opening up above me.
What do you mean?
Like, you know how yesterday I put my idea?
Mm-hmm.
It would still work because the ground would just open up above me.
Oh, you're saying, so if it was like a tornado structure where it was under the ground instead of above the ground, so it couldn't move as much, but the house was in the ground to keep it more secure. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
I think
A bunker.
yeah, like a bunker, that could work. It could cause damage because if the earth is shaking and your house is in the earth, I don't know. That's an interesting question. If we're in a bunker, would that be more safe than a building that can wobble? All right. William, any ideas so far?
To kind of build like a taller house with like multiple layers. So like if it does shake, it'll just take away little chips of layer. It won't take a whole bunch of layers.
So you're thinking maybe if it just takes the top layers, if people go to the bottom layer, they might have more of a chance. Okay, so maybe having stronger ground layers than the top layers that could be evacuated in that moment. Okay,
But if the bottom breaks, the whole building breaks.
That's true. There are some downfalls to that plan. We're thinking critically, people. I like it. Let's keep thinking about ideas here. Move on to slide 5. Again, on slide 5, we are highlighting the impact on humans and the environment. Really awful great quakes. On January 12th, 2010, a magnitude 7.0 quake hit Haiti. Almost 300,000 houses fell apart. More than 220,000 people died. Another 300,000 were hurt. I want us to highlight this right here, the number of people that died and the number of people that were hurt. If we add those two numbers together, that is 500,000 people. Okay, so you guys have heard the number million and you know how big that feels. Think about how big even half of that still is. So 500,000 people were affected by this in just one city. Or I apologize, one country. Okay, let's keep reading. People had no water. That's an effect on humans. They were hungry. Why were they hungry? Farms were destroyed. Stores where you could go buy money or go buy food was destroyed. Farms that had animals that we can eat were destroyed. So the food in this area was devastated as well. Many got sick. There were 52 aftershocks. This made things even worse. Haiti is still rebuilding. Guys, this was 11 years ago, and the damage was so severe that there are still sections of Haiti that are rebuilding from that earthquake 11 years later. Okay, so these are a very large problem. Steve, do you have an idea?
So, first of all, almost 300,000 houses fell apart. That's a big problem.
It is a big problem. Do you have any ideas for solutions right now?
Well, no, but secondly, this might be a bit outdated. And thirdly, what is an aftershock?
Great question, Steve. Take a look at this text feature down here. What's an aftershock? Let's look at these. Aftershocks are small quakes. They follow a big quake. They can continue for weeks, months, or years, okay? So here's the best way that you could maybe understand aftershocks. If you've ever fallen and hurt something really bad, and in that moment, that's the worst pain. Oh my gosh, ow, 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 right? Ow. And then later, when you go to get in bed, you accidentally bump that area on the bed again, and you're like, oh, it doesn't hurt as bad, but it still hurts. That's what happens with aftershocks. So there's a huge earthquake going crazy, going crazy, going crazy. And then it's like the earth goes, oh, and shakes a tiny bit again, okay, as it's calming down. Or like if you've ever cried really hard and you're breathing and you're super sad, and then as you're calming down, you're going, that's kind of like an aftershock. It's still a big event, but it's just slowly starting to calm down. Okay, so it's that same kind of concept. It's after a major event, the little things that still remain. Okay, Terrence.
I forgot.
I don't remember. Aiden Hampton.
I'm sorry, I did not mean to do that.
All right, let's continue on here by looking at slide 6. Aiden G.
I remember.
It was for slide 5. I was gonna say that if another earthquake happens and all the food goes down into the crack and no one can get it, what would happen?
Yeah, so that is a good question, and we see right here some information. Soldiers hand out water to people after an earthquake in Haiti. So you guys might, no, you weren't even born yet. Okay, so I remember this earthquake that happened. And Aiden, what happened was a lot of countries around the world who had resources sent them to Haiti. Okay, so there were many organizations, some that we've talked about in our government unit, like the Red Cross and FEMA and different other countries' organizations. They would gather water bottles. They would gather food that can't go bad. So like food that is preservable or in packaging that can travel long ways. And they would send it so that people in these areas could have them, okay? A lot of groups started collecting money for like tents that people could send over so that families had some kind of a shelter. They could have like a tent because their house was destroyed, and the hotels where people would normally stay would be destroyed. So there weren't places for people to live. So What's really touching, I guess, Aiden, would be that when things like this happen, usually the whole world's community shows up to take care of each other. Okay, so it's one of the reasons that it's important that we're aware of what's going on in our world so that we can help be part of that solution. Okay, now, as we're continuing to think of ideas, you guys have started noticing some problems that happen because of the earthquake. So not only are homes destroyed, not only can people get hurt and be killed, but now you're thinking, oh my gosh, all the food is gone. Your solutions can address those issues as well. So the solutions that you can engineer can also think about how could we get resources to people. Okay, so you're thinking about how can we lessen those damages. All right, there's a lot that you guys want to say right now. I'm going to pop you into some breakout rooms to have those conversations. Okay, so if you want to
Remembered mine.
talking, I'm going to pop you in. All righty, slide 7. Saving lives. One expert says earthquakes don't kill people, poorly built buildings do. Safer buildings save lives. Stone homes fall apart in a quake. They are stiff. Wooden or bamboo houses are safer. That's some impact on humans depending on how their house is built. Wooden or bamboo houses are safer. They move with the earth. Homes made of straw bales may be safest of all. They sway with the earth. Straw homes are cheap to build. Question: should I build a straw home to live in? Answer: no. In North America, homes in earthquake zones are built to be safe. In countries like Haiti and Nepal, straw homes can save lives. So in North America earthquake zones, our engineers have figured out ways to make it survive the smaller earthquakes that we have. In other countries where the earthquakes are much larger, they have to build homes a different way because they experience different magnitudes of earthquakes. Workers in Haiti build homes that will be stronger in an earthquake. Okay, so this is some of the repair that's still happening, where people who lost homes are now building them differently so that if it happens again, the devastation isn't as bad. So this is an example of something that you guys could think about when you're engineering your solutions. They're doing this before another earthquake happens so that when an earthquake happens, they remain more safe. Let's move on to slide 8. Be prepared. Again, we're highlighting the impact on humans and the environment. Know what to do if an earthquake strikes. If you are inside, drop down and crawl under a desk or table. Hold on to the table and stay there until the shaking stops. If you are outside, go to an open field. A soccer field or a baseball field is safe. The biggest danger is falling buildings. There aren't going to be falling buildings in fields. Stay away from buildings in an earthquake. Children in the Philippines have earthquake drills at school. They are ready to take cover. So just like you guys have fire drills and tornado drills here, because that's the kind of weather that we encounter with tornadoes, they have earthquake drills. We don't have earthquake drills because Indiana is not at a great risk for earthquakes. But we do have tornado drills because we do get those. So in the Philippines, children have those at school. Which US state has the most earthquakes? Alaska has the most quakes and the biggest. 10 of the 12 biggest US quakes were in Alaska. Slide 9 is our last slide, highlighting the impact on humans and the environment. Earthquakes can happen anywhere. Most do no harm, but people who live near big faults need to be prepared for a quake emergency. Know how to find your family. Have an emergency kit ready. It should hold first aid supplies, water, and food. Keep flashlights and candles handy. If trouble strikes, you'll be ready. So an impact on humans here is people who live near big faults need to be prepared. That can impact their life. This road in San Francisco cracked in an earthquake. That is an effect on the environment around our cities. Okay. Alrighty, slide 10. On slide 10, we are going to share what we can complete or what we can design or engineer to stop the damage caused by earthquakes. That should say earthquakes, people. Oops. Okay, we're going to draw a picture of our solution here. What impact does this have on human life and the environment? We already have the answer to that question. We highlighted it. Major damage. People are hurt, people die, people are hungry, people don't have water. Houses fall, buildings fall, temples fall, shops are closed, no power. We already quickly found these answers, so let's type them on slide 10. Go ahead and get your labeling ready. What impact does this have on human life and the environment? Okay. People get hurt and die. No power, water, or food. Buildings are destroyed. I will put this in the chat because I know we are up against time. People get hurt and die. There is no power, water, or food. Buildings are destroyed. So now we're going to come up with an idea and we're going to write it in one sentence, okay? There are many, 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 many ideas. This is an example and I want you to follow my example so that when you are sharing your idea about hurricanes, you know what to do, okay? So I want you to follow my example. We're going to work on this together. What is your idea? Write it in one sentence. The type of damage that I want to focus on is that there is no power, water, or food, okay? No power, water, or food. So how can we lessen this impact on humans, okay? So an idea that we're going to explore together is to create resource pods that are earthquake proof, okay? We will create containers that hold resources and can survive an earthquake.
Miss Susan says Cam. It says Cam, C-A-M-N.
Thank you. My editor is on standby. Okay. So we can create some containers that hold resources that can survive an earthquake. If we do this, we're going to be able to help people who have survived the earthquake not die from further stress. Okay. So I want you to think about that. You survive an earthquake, but then you're going to starve to death because you can't find food. So this is still preventing a problem that happens because of the damages of earthquakes. So we can create containers that hold resources and can survive an earthquake. So what supplies are needed for your plans? Okay, we're going to need to gather the resources that people need. Some resources that people need are water bottles, food, candles, matches, so they can light their candles and so they can build fires to stay warm since they won't have heat, or maybe some blankets or things like that that they might have had before. Water bottles, food, candles, matches, strong metal containers. Steve?
I just noticed it says complete the chart ideas how to contain damage caused by wildfires.
I know, I pointed that out. That's why I highlighted it. I think our
Why?
assignment forgot to rechange it.
They had one job.
Well, they had 20 jobs because there are 20 slides. So one mistake on 20 slides, we'll give them a break.
Miss Sousa.
Yep.
But what if the containers don't work?
You're right. I think that's why we'll need to test them, right? Part of the engineering design
and
is testing to make sure they can survive.
Miss Sousa, and we could probably, if we could try and do that, then we could probably make a container that can fit each family in it.
We could. I think one of the things that's hard about that is that earthquakes happen like this. It's perfectly fine and then boom, an earthquake. So a lot of times families don't have time to go get themselves somewhere safe. It's not like a tornado where we can see it coming, so we go get safe. It's just all of a sudden the earth is shaking. Okay, so it's pretty crazy. All right, next up, write step-by-step directions to complete your plan. Okay, so we are going to write down how we're going to complete this. So first, we need to collect resources. Okay, there are many ways that we could do that. We could buy them ourselves. We could ask for donations. We could ask for government to help us, but in some way we need to make sure we have those resources together. We need to design and test containers in practice earthquakes. Okay, you guys saw a practice earthquake in that video when it had that building that was on a shake table. You saw the building shaking. It's called a shake table. A shake table practices earthquakes, so you can see if your design is going to survive. Okay, so we need to design and test containers and practice earthquakes. That way we know when the real earthquake comes, if it was a good idea or not. After we design and test these containers, we need to build and place enough in the community. Okay, we don't want only one container for a whole country. Okay, imagine if your earthquake happened at school and your container was at your auntie's house across the town. How would you get there? So we've got to place enough in the community that there's enough for the people to survive on once the natural disaster occurs. And I know I'm moving faster, guys. I want to honor our time. So I am putting these in the chat. You can copy and paste them. This is just an example so that when you complete your work, you have something to look back on to know what's expected. Our final step would be to fill the containers. Once we've got them placed in the neighborhoods and in the communities, we've got to fill them with the resources that are needed. So let's talk about this last one. How do you know your solution will work? Justify it in 1 to 2 or in 2 to 3 sentences. So I'm thinking about this. We've read that people are often hungry and dehydrated after disasters. We know that people need food and need water. So if we provide food and water before the natural disaster occurs, then afterwards they would not be hungry or dehydrated because they have those resources available to them. Okay, so how do you know your solution will work? We have to identify the problem that we've said. Humans need food and water. Oops. If it is destroyed, this provides a backup. Okay, so if the food and water in the community that is there before the earthquake is destroyed, this is a backup. So they will have that as an available option to them.
Not 2 to 3 sentences still.
It is 2 to 3 sentences. It is 2. Here is the first sentence, 1. Here is the second sentence, 2. It is not 3, you're right, but it says 2 to 3. All right. The part that we're not going to do together right now is drawing a picture, but you are going to draw your picture on the one that you complete today. Okay, I want to see a picture of the design that you're going to create. I'm going to honor your guys' time and not draw our picture together here now, but you will be creating a picture on the one that you turn in. Okay. You are going to follow the exact same process, but you are going to be doing it about hurricanes. So slide 12 has a video about hurricanes. Slides 13 through 19 have text that you are going to read. Slide 20 has a chart just like this, where you are going to come up with a plan to prevent the damage or the impact on humans or the environment. Okay. We thought outside of the box here. We didn't think about creating better buildings. You totally could have. You can look at any impact, any problem caused by the disaster and think about how can we fix this before it happens. Okay? Not what can we do after, what can we send to help, but before the hurricane comes, what can we do to keep people and the environment safe? What can we make better? Okay. Again, I am taking 2 grades on this assignment. The first is a science grade. I am grading the plans that you come up with as a science grade. The second is a reading grade. I am looking at the text that you highlight. So yesterday, I had people that only highlighted the directions and then turned it in. You failed the reading assignment. You are to highlight in the text where you see impacts on humans, impacts on the environment. Okay, so 2 grades. What are you highlighting for reading? What is your science grade for your project on hurricanes? Okay, that is your work today.